Vasu, welcome.
Heck yeah, how's it going?
It's going great. It's going great. How are you going?
Good. Just
Sweet.
getting situated, still recovering.
Yeah, you're recently back. Well, let's give the audience a little intro into you and I and get into it. I'm really psyched to have this time to connect with you. My name's Z. I'm the head coach at Samsara, and our business, we're involved with training athletes, is most of what we do these days. We're training athletes from a variety of different sports, and that's one of the ways that we've connected with Vasu. The other part of my life and the other part of Samsara is guiding and a passion for the mountains. And Vasu and I've had the chance to ski together as well. So Vasu's kind of part of both of my passions, and I'm just really psyched to have you as a friend in my life and as somebody to look up to as you just forge ahead doing these seemingly impossible things. So, Vasu, welcome, and I'm
Yeah,
psyched to have you here.
yeah, appreciate being part of this. Definitely love sharing my experiences, especially the one we had earlier this season up Moran. That was, I feel like, definitely a good catalyst into what the season was to come. But yeah, definitely would love to dive more into how we as a team made Denali happen too. So that was very exciting time for us.
Totally. Well, I was going to talk about Moran as well because that was a very eye-opening experience for me. Um, Vasu and his team came to try to ski something really big in the Tetons this spring, and we set our sights on the Skillet, which is kind of like the king line in the Tetons. If you drive through the range and you're a skier or a rider and you look up in the mountains, you're like, yeah, that's the line. It goes from the top of the mountain to the lake, uninterrupted, straight down, and 6,000 foot line. It's just a really spectacular, um, piece of skiing. And I was just I'd watched all the videos on Vasu and everything, but I really couldn't understand how we were going to do this and how this guy who's got one leg and cruises around on crutches was going to climb a snow-covered mountain. And my conclusion for the audience is that there's no tricks. That was like my biggest takeaway is like there's no tricks. It's just one foot in the front of the other. It's just hard work. And watching Vasu do it and seeing that like no there's no hidden special technique that makes it easy. It's not easy. You're just hopping on one leg. You hop, you put your crutches in the snow, you hope that they bite, and then you hop again and you just keep hopping all the way up the mountain. I mean, it's unbelievable. And the other part that I don't know that everybody knows that I don't think I fully counted on is that you're a totally independent skier in the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
You're not really relying on anybody else. Like you carry your own stuff. You got a big old backpack. You manage your whole scene. Like you're a totally independent skier in the same way anybody else would be.
Yeah, I mean
And
exactly. So I mean, as yeah, you probably have seen, like, I just use different tools to get up the mountain, but that process took me definitely a little bit longer than the typical skier to be able to experience the same, backcountry um, outings as, someone with two legs. So yeah, it just took a little bit longer, a few more resources, and definitely open to chatting more about how that came to be, and the mindset that is who I am now, uh, to, to help change not just your mind, but also the minds of so many other people around what disability means and what having one leg means, and being a someone that uses crutches daily. So yeah, pretty profound as to where it has all gotten me, I'd say.
yeah, I mean, I'd love to maybe like switch gears before we even talk about Denali and talk about where this story came from because, there's so many unique aspects to your story, and that's visible when I go out with you, not just skiing. And we talked about the uphill, but like, I could tell all of you guys out there, like Vasu absolutely shreds on the way down too, and that was crazy to watch. Just like how much energy, how much speed, how much heat he's carrying in those turns all on one leg is like just really awesome. And then, it's a super high level skateboarder too. I've seen him stick ollie flips, landing on one foot and a crutch. Um, and even before, if we step a little bit further back, when we go into the outdoors as people of color, especially in the world of skiing, we don't look like everybody else out there. There's not a lot of brown people, and there's even few black people out skiing and riding. And I'd love to hear your story of how, as a guy who grew up with one leg, and maybe you can tell us a story of how that came to be, even guy who grew up with one leg from an Indian family like myself, and then you found this passion for the mountains, and you wouldn't take no for an answer, and you forged a path, and now you live in the mountains, and you just came back from Denali. So give us a quick rundown on just your story. Would be awesome.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I was not born with one leg, but my leg was amputated when I was 9 months old. So kind of pretty similar to being born with one leg. Pretty high amputation, pretty close to the hip. I have about 2 inches or so of femur left, but yeah, after 9 months, was in the hospital, moved back to India with the parents and brother, and to Gujarat. I don't know if you know where Ahmedabad is, but on the western side, pretty far away from the mountains, I'd say. It's pretty flat and dry, in the sense of, you know, not precipitation, but definitely flatter. Um, but yeah, and then was more so following my older brother around Amir. We would play cricket and soccer and football, and just like play around with random neighborhood kids. I used to have a prosthetic leg at that time too, and I was constantly breaking it or growing out of it just because I was pretty rough on it, and just growing pretty fast. And then my parents finally decided to move back to the States when I was 7. And from there, it kind of catalyzed a little bit more opportunity. And my parents were very much instigators in that and helped me go to the mountains a little bit more. My brother was definitely a big proponent in some tough love when I was younger as well. He would be there by my side if I really needed support, but he would primarily tell me to get up every time I had fallen skiing. And yeah, we kind of just went to the mountains a handful of times when I was younger, and kind of just slowly started feeling more comfortable with one ski on. Went to University of Vermont, closer to the hills, closer to mountains, still, typically known for its ice, but definitely has some good technical skiing. So really got used to some of that more tight technical skiing there. Got more into backcountry skiing through our outing club at the university, and with the help of, again, friends and the outing club itself, to be able to basket attachments that you saw on Moran. I've been using those same things for a decade now, so that's pretty cool. And then just kind of pushed it from there, started making films and pushing myself with other friends. Moved out to Montana. Of course, Montana is kind of full of mountains, and just kept pushing myself in that sense too. And, it just started getting the ball rolling a little bit more. I also started putting myself out there as an athlete, so getting opportunities around, gear, and just, more opportunities of being able to spend time in the mountains instead of the, typical nine to five job. So, all those things kind of added up into everything that is today.
Right on, Vasu. And like when you look back on that period of your life of kind of ramping up in the mountains and developing all the skills and breaking into those places, do you see that as being like a pretty smooth process that was like the environment was pretty welcoming to you, or not?
I mean, I would say not really, because I wasn't actually taking part in any adaptive sports or being around other folks of color. I mean, Vermont is still pretty majority white. So most of my friends were white, but I had a handful of friends that were folks of color or had a disability, but didn't get to hang out too much with them. So definitely felt like an outsider. Still continue to feel like an outsider just because of all the things I talk about. But definitely have been able to connect with a lot more people now. But growing up then, it was a little bit trickier. We were primarily in like subsidized housing and around a lot of folks of color in that sense. But once we went to the mountains, much different story. So, it just I don't really know where that fire came from. I think it mostly came from my parents and brother, just not giving up on me and supporting me, continually supporting me. So definitely lucky and privileged to have them in my life constantly when it comes down to it.
So cool. Well, shout out to your mom and dad and to your brother. Hopefully they get a chance to watch this. What do you make, Vasu, of the outdoor industry as a place for people of color today?
I think, to say it as softly as possible, I don't have to say it as softly either, but there's definitely opportunity for growth, and there's definitely been a lot of mistakes made, either intentionally or unintentionally, to exclude people of color and disabled folks and queer folks and a lot of folks on the margins. So and there's a huge movement going on right now, especially with Black Lives Matter happening last year and all that stuff going down. I think the outdoor industry is slowly waking up to them noticing the problems within themselves. So ourselves as well, we're part of the problem as well. So hopefully, we're also part of the solution when it comes down to it. So I think there's a lot to focus on, a lot to grow when it comes to representation and making sure that we're marketing the people that are using the outdoors, which is everyone. Every single population is taking part in the outdoors however they seem best fit culturally or within their own ability, etc. So any of that stuff is super important to showcase. A lot of companies are doing a good job at that, and also providing resources to these communities to be able to connect with the outdoor space as well, based on our history. So there's a lot of reconciling needing to happen and slowly happening as well, which is really good to see. I really am hopeful when it comes down to it.
Right on. Great message. And I have to call out that your mom and dad are watching. They just messaged. Love you and proud of you, Vasu. That's rad.
Oh, cool. Hell yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks, Mom and
shout
Dad.
out. Shout out to the parents for sure. Well, like us being here, and of course, you climbing and skiing Denali is, of course, a way that your life is contributing to open doors and making things seem normal and possible and attainable for all kinds of different people who might have felt that they don't really belong in this
Mhm.
predominantly white space. And you're right, the outdoor industry is becoming very aware that it does not look like the rest of America, and that that's a problem. And why would it be that,
Right.
the best of America, truly the best of what this country has to offer, would only be um, a welcome place for white people? That doesn't make any sense. And I've grown up in white societies. I grew up in Switzerland. I grew up here, and I know that all of the people I've tied into a rope with and gone skiing with, they're all white, and they all see that as a problem too. And
Right.
so I think there's a lot of positive intent going towards reconciling and making the outdoors seem like a place that's welcome for everybody.
Yeah. 100%.
Um, Vasu, let's take the deep dive into the almighty Denali experience. You just came back only 10 days ago or so, am I right? A week ago?
I think I came back last Wednesday. Yeah. So like 7 days ago.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've been eating a lot and sleeping a lot like a
Totally.
wise man.
Yep.
Uh, yeah. So, what maybe, you can take this anywhere you want to go. This is your mic. So, do you want to tell us a story? You want to tell us about the greatest challenges or the best high fives? We're here
Yeah. I
for
mean,
it.
I think it was I wrote about this a little bit. It was a big lesson in what equity really means within communities, of like how to really share and distribute resources. In within our team of 6, the resource was, time and strength. And at the time that we were doing Denali, I knew that getting to 14,000 camp wasn't the biggest hurdle. After that was going to be the biggest hurdle. So I was trying to make sure that my body and my shoulders were able to do the upper mountain more effectively than some of the lower mountain stuff, which is less dangerous and less taxing. I mean, to a certain point, you still have to pull a ton of sleds and weight, but yeah, it was a full team effort. I pulled a sled from base camp, which is at 7,000, where you fly in all the way to about 10,000 feet. So didn't pull it too long, which was nice. Definitely gave my arms and shoulders a break. But the team definitely pulled, their fair share of their weight, as well as a little bit of mine, just because I wasn't pulling a sled anymore, to be able to, again, move efficiently as a team through the mountains. So that was super big in, more the version of success to summit, when it came down, to a full team dynamic. It wasn't individualistic. We had some moments here and there, but we really worked them out. But, we started focusing on the team itself and what we all wanted to do, which was summit and ski off the top. And the way to do that was really work together as a team and, play to our strengths as much as possible. So that was, I think, the biggest highlight. And I think a lot of the team members really learned from that experience how a team should move through the mountains, and how we can, lift each other up whenever we fall, disabled or not. It doesn't matter on that end, but we can always support each other, ask for support, ask for help. So that was the biggest takeaway when it really came down to some of those harder days.
You're getting a good little shout out from another Samsara athlete, Amanda. Teamwork makes the dream work. Totally.
Yeah, totally, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, just speaking specifically to that sled dragging aspect of the game, having watched how you move in the mountains, obviously there's this little moment where you're on your foot, and then there's a moment where you're on your crutches, and it goes back and forth, right? It's like a hop. It's kind of how I see it. So, I mean, the idea of dragging a sled with over 100 pounds in that part where you're just like on your crutches and like leaning over to get forward, that just seems so taxing, like unbelievably taxing.
Exactly. So yeah, we definitely kept that in mind throughout the entire process up to 14 camp. And that was the major reason why I asked for support from the team to be able to pull my sled or pull some of the weight off of me, so I
Yeah.
wouldn't fully drain myself in the lower mountain, when there was a much bigger part to come. So yeah, that was definitely rough. Some of those days when we were all pulling sleds. I
Yeah.
would say the last day when we were moving off the mountain was definitely the hardest day, because it was a 24-hour day push from 17
Mm.
camp all the way to 7 camp, to
Wow.
get on the
Yeah.
plane. So
Yeah.
big day there. But yeah, it was the toll of pulling a sled is definitely a rugged one.
I mean, it's a rugged one with two legs. It's
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
so taxing. It's so inefficient and frustrating, and they're so uncooperative most of the time.
Exactly.
And it's just like a total test of patience with two
Yeah, and
legs.
on top of that, we were doing a production, so taking photos and video, and
Right. Right.
the team definitely had a lot of production gear, solar panels and batteries and cameras, and we had a dome tent. So on
Yeah.
average, each person on Denali usually carries 100 pounds each. So with a team of six, it'd be 600 pounds. We had a total of 1,000 pounds. So
Yeah.
it was a lot more weight than even
Yeah.
average. So it's like, oh
Yeah.
crap, okay, these guys are really pulling their weight. They are, um, more than pulling their weight. So it's just like, holy hell. Um, definitely earned some of those rest days. Let's just say.
Yeah, totally. We're getting a lot of great questions about training, so I'm gonna put a pin in those because I definitely want to leave some time to chat about those. Those are good questions. Vasu, I feel like we should give the team a shout out because for one, it's no ordinary team that would do that. That would just happily take somebody else's sled and be so invested in your story and that. And then, Ted Hesser has supported, you and I getting together and giving us photos. And just
Hmm.
shout out to Ted. That was really generous and helped there be such a great audience here tonight. So tell us a little bit about the team, who was on the team, and
Yeah, so
um,
it was a total of six of us, myself, and then Pete McAfee, who also has one leg. He uses a prosthetic to move in the mountains on the uphill, and then he pops his leg off, puts it in on his backpack, and skis down like I do,
oh, okay,
um,
uh-huh.
on the downhill.
So
Um,
he skis one ski as well.
hmm Yeah, but on
Oh,
the uphill, he climbs with or a prosthetic
yeah,
leg and
yeah.
his other leg.
Hmm.
And then there was Ben Farrar. I always mess that up. A local Bozeman person who is also friends with the production team, Eric Repka and Stein Retzlav, and then Ted Hesser as well. So it was four folks without disabilities and two folks with,
Hmm.
but it seemed like a good experience to kind of learn about each other. Of course, being together for a month and working together for a month,
No
really,
doubt.
really pulled some emotions and conversations out of all of us.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, shout out to that team. Shout out to all those people
Yeah,
who,
definitely. I
you
mean, it
know,
would not be possible without them. That's for sure.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and they obviously care about you and elevating your story and the mission that you've got beyond
Yeah.
yourself.
And
So that's
the
rad.
idea around my story is like, you know, I mostly want to try to be as much of a messenger than kind of myself, like, an individual. So the idea is like we can find our own successes, we can climb our own Denali's, whatever it may be, um, when we are provided support in various different ways. So, for me, it's been my family, my brother, the opportunities I've been able to acquire throughout my life, whether it be, going skiing or going to the University of Vermont or being able to create my own adaptive equipment, but also, putting myself out there and creating those opportunities myself. So there's like this balance between support and grit that I'm always trying to battle, and making sure that that's part of every conversation. And I think not just for adaptive athletes who need support, whether it be adaptive equipment or physical strength like Denali, um, from a team like mine. It's also, folks of color that also need support in various different ways as well to feel welcomed in certain spaces. So that's kind of the idea that I'm trying to bring forth within the outdoor industry is like we can accomplish and achieve so much if we're supporting each other. Whether we have a disability or not, whether we're white or black or brown, we just have to learn from each other, build trust and rapport from each other, build relationships, and and build from there. Um, and that's kind of the mission and story I'm trying to share as much as possible.
Yeah, yeah, I know that from hanging out with you and from watching this story kind of take shape that
Yeah.
this bigger mission out there. And I think, a lot of people, well-intentioned people in the outdoor community feel like, you know, it's just a coincidence that there's no black and brown people
Right.
in the backcountry. It's just it's weird, but it's just the way it is. And it's not a coincidence, like
No, it's kind of designed.
yeah,
Yeah.
those things are a product of the broader culture. And I think we're coming to this moment where a lot of people are like, okay, wait, so you're saying it's not a coincidence?
Right.
Yeah, no, it's not a coincidence. Like, okay, so why is it? It's like, yeah, that's the right question. And how's that connected to these other things in society? Because it's really about society at large, and then the outdoor industry really just becomes like a microcosm of that. And the reality is that the outdoors is mostly enjoyed by people of privilege,
Exactly.
and that's where
So
a lot of
yeah,
these things come
and
from.
it's not, and I always say, like, it's not bad to have privilege, it's just bad to hoard privilege. So the idea is to leverage what we have and what opportunities we have access to be able to share that with others as well. So once we realize what privilege we have, that's when we'll start acknowledging like how we can really leverage it. And that's kind of the work that I've been doing over the past several years of like, even as a person of color with one leg, I am very privileged to be in the US and have all these opportunities either handed to me or, created. So, how can I leverage it? So it's not just about me, it's about the communities that I'm connected with and have relationships with to, keep changing the narrative to elevate other people's stories throughout all of this. And, hopefully the end goal is to end suffering always, but, that's kind of a hard one, but slow and steady provide better wellness to a lot of these communities that are being very much negatively impacted. So, outdoors is one definitely a piece of the pie, but there's a lot of other ways we can impact our communities.
Yeah, totally. And I mean that's a lot of the parallels that you and I have, is that I'm in my 40s now and I've made a career as a guide, so I get respect when I'm in the mountains. People are like, "Oh, you're a mountain guide, you know what you're doing." You know, so we have these positions that are very uncommon for people of color, and we realize that like part of that are these things that we inherited, are the support of our families that, your family, like mine, really kind of paved a way for me to connect with being outdoors from an early age.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so even though you'd look around and be like, yeah, it's weird, everybody else is white and I'm not, because your family was, a clan and you guys were doing that, it just started to like put this thing in your brain that like, hey, this is totally normal. This is what we do. I belong here. I have a
Right.
place here because my mom and dad say I do, and that's what I'm
Exactly.
listening to. And obviously that's not the case for a whole generation that's coming behind us. And that's part of what we're trying to lead, right? Is an outdoor community that's better off in that way than it was when we started.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
that's
what would you say? So this, has been a bunch of people on this call. Like, how, what do you have an encouragement for people out there of like, hey, these are things that you can do as people who intend to make the outdoors a more diverse place. These are things that as a community, I think we could do that would make a difference.
yeah, I mean, it's more so a lot of it's like internal work, it's a lot of knowing who we are within a lot of the communities we're a part of and how and where we hold power and privilege. As dudes, we definitely hold power in various different forms. And, as even South Asians, like we hold power compared to, indigenous folks or black folks. So it's like, understanding a lot of
Totally.
that privilege is super helpful in unpacking and reframing how we navigate different spaces and how we build relationships and trust with other people. So, a lot of that internal work really helps
Mm,
question how we navigate these spaces and how we and what relationships we build, whether it be, only with white folks or only with non-disabled folks, or is it with, communities that are completely outside of your bubble. I always say it's like totally okay to feel uncomfortable. um, you know we learn a lot from our discomforts, as we know in the mountains. We learn a lot when we're uncomfortable in those spaces. So it's totally okay to correlate that feeling to everyday feeling as well. And when we're building a lot of these relationships with people, within our circles or out of our circles. I also always try to showcase this rule that I don't know where I picked it up, but I feel like it stuck with me for a while. Where, do you know what the golden rule is?
I feel like I'm about to find out what the golden rule is.
Well, the golden rule is treat others how you want to be treated,
Sure. Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know where I picked this up, but um, I call it the golden rule 2.0 is treat others how they want to be treated. So that's the biggest thing, is like consent, asking questions, and showing support, how the people, that are within our communities want to be, you know, feel respected and included in that way. So that's kind of
Right.
my always go to for people, is just treat others
Hmm.
how they want to be treated.
Well, it wouldn't be a Samsara Insta Live if we didn't talk about training,
Well, yeah.
because that's um, Jason says that's the platinum rule. I
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it.
exactly right.
Nice. Yeah, so I mean, that is unquestionably one of my life's passions is the human system, how the body works, and how as human beings, when we understand our biology and our physiology and how our system works, we can really gain so much control over it, and we can manipulate it to allow it or to coax it towards being capable of doing these things that we dream of.
Hmm.
And I just think that's such a rad part of being a human being is that we're not a machine. We don't just wear out. We don't just we're not just born with this um, vehicle, engine, whatever, and then see it degrade over time. Like that's absolutely not how it works.
Right.
We are constantly stimulating changes, and our brains can dream up of these things that we want to do, whatever they are in the mountains or otherwise. And as we gain a deeper understanding of how the body works, then we also gain greater control and our ability to like march towards those goals. For me, that's just like such a big force in my life. I just love that process. And one of the things that I was really psyched to connect with you about was training, because I was like, wow, now this is such a unique athlete who, I mean, the one idea, right, in training is adaptation. Like, how do we create the right adaptations? We see that in nature and how plants and animals, especially those that live in one particular climate, can become so incredibly well adapted to their environment.
Hmm.
Humans can too. And you are a prime example of a guy who has figured out adaptations, even though you live in a society where everybody else has two legs. And
Right.
so I just like that mindset. I was like, we got to connect on that. So yeah, I think it's just a fun process, and I don't think we need to get into the nitty gritty of exactly what we do. But I think there were some questions in the chat earlier about like, how did you train for Denali? How did you train for dragging a sled? What are maybe some things that you learned about that process?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm constantly training. I'd say like at least 5 days a week. A few hours in the gym, or going on trail runs, or skiing, or touring, backcountry skiing. Um, this season was definitely much different, just because of COVID, and I was also let go from my 9 to 5 job because of COVID, and then I had a ton of free time, so I was just constantly like outside playing, especially because that was the safest space to play in. So when it was the warmer seasons, definitely a lot of trail running. I don't think we haven't trail ran, Z, but um, the way I run is I skip on one leg twice, and then plant my crutches, and then skip on one leg twice and plant my crutches whenever it's flat and mellow terrain. So there's that, I guess that power that comes from my leg that helps with some of that uphill travel that's with ski touring as well. So there's a lot of this like cross pollinating happening between trail running and ski touring for me. So that's helped a lot. Most of the stuff that gets worked are my shoulders and hands. So uphill running definitely helps keep my shoulders in line when it comes to ski touring. So that's helped a ton with cardio and muscle strength and endurance. Um, and that's why, I was kind of plateauing out last season, and that's why I reached out to you all, was trying to figure out how to keep pushing a little bit more on my training, especially when it came to my joints. That was the biggest thing, is like my ankle and wrists get a ton of impact. So trying to mitigate any kind of, you know, um, uh, injury when it comes to that stuff. So that was a big one. And that's another thing, is like I train so I don't injure myself in the mountains either. So yeah, those are kind of the main focuses. when I was focusing on Denali, and just, continually pushing myself until a week before going to Denali. Then I just kind of stopped training entirely and just ate food and rested.
Put on some weight.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I remember you first telling. So, for those of you probably know, but Vasu's one of our athletes, and we've been working together. This is his second cycle with us, so we're really starting to work together to figure out the modifications to the exercises and to really understand the very unique stresses that you put on your body. And it makes total sense, right? That like shoulders, elbows, and wrists would take so much impact, just in the same way as for two-legged folks, our feet do that. But the difference is that our feet have been adapted over all of human history to be specially capable of producing elastic rebound, this like free elastic rebound. That's why we're so efficient on our feet and we can trail run and we get that little bounce in our step. It's not because of our aerobic system. It is partly, of course, but it's also because our aerobic system is enhanced by the
Mhm.
elasticity of our Achilles. And of course, we don't have an Achilles in our elbows and our shoulders. And so those joints are much less adapted over generations at allowing us to capitalize on the elasticity that is built into our system.
Yeah.
I remember when we talked about trail running when we went skiing together, and you told me that you, just like you said, you're like, I crutch and then I double skip. And I remember immediately when you said that, I was like, boom, that makes so much sense because I would have thought you crutch, skip. And you're like, no, it just works better to double skip. It's like, of course it does because guess what's going to be more efficient? A steel rod or an elastic leg
Right.
that can create this rebound. And so intuitively, you knew that touching that down twice, getting that rebound twice for every step that you take with your crutches, is just going to be way more efficient. I love that. It's just like one of
Mhm.
those ways in which when you explore biology and then you can kind of bring this connection to life, and it's just like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, totally. So, yeah, trail running has helped me a ton in my cross training. It's also been nice to not be inside and training. It's nice to be outside.
Yeah, of
So,
course.
yeah.
Absolutely. And that's how we should train for things that involve being outside, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I think the biggest actually, I mean, physical, yes, was a definitely big proponent of Denali, but a lot of like emotional strength as well. Like some of those nights are really cold and you're moving in this cold weather, very exposed, out there for weeks, haven't showered, and pretty much everything a human body doesn't really want to go through, you kind of experience on Denali. So, yeah, a lot of discomfort happening. So, being, being okay with a lot of that was definitely a mind game, and I got used to it pretty quickly just because I've kind of grown up when I was in India very minimally and pooping outside and all this other stuff. So, um, just brought back to my roots a little bit more so, maybe with a touch of snow and cold in it. But yeah, that was definitely a mental game for sure. And just taking it day by day was definitely the key. It's just Denali is known for random weather windows and such sporadic temperature changes. So being okay with that and understanding that it is hour by hour and day by day was super important.
mm. Well, sweet, Vasu. I'll maybe give a quick shout out if anybody has any questions they want us to touch on. We could try to do that. But maybe in the meanwhile, while those filter in, talk to us a little bit about your training going forward, your plans for the summer. We're just in the process of starting up a new cycle of training. So, yeah, what's kind of on the horizon for you?
Well, I got definitely one trip planned in at the end of September, start of October to go climb Cotopaxi with Romp Global, which is a organization that provides medical equipment around the world for amputees primarily, which is super cool. So excited about that. And then before that, I'm just gonna be trail running and spending time in the mountains as much as possible to keep that cardio and strength up. And then, taking part in the 3-month cycle with Samsara just to kind of see how that's helping develop a lot of my joints and muscular strength as well. So combination of a lot of different things there.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's going to be great because when we started training, you were kind of right in the middle or even towards the end of your Denali prep, and then you were out for Denali. So this kind of gives us a window to lock in, have a regular schedule, and really see
Yeah,
where we can move the needle. So I'm
totally.
really looking forward to it.
Yeah, that'll be nice for sure.
How many dips to the summit of Denali?
I think I counted 100,000 to the summit.
There you have it. There you
So
have it.
I think Moran was
There
40,000 actually. I can't remember,
was
but
it? Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
Moran was an ass kicker just because it was all in one day.
Yeah.
Whereas Denali was like prolonged over like a full month. So, it was a different kind of endurance, I'd say.
Yeah. 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 Totally.
Yeah.
Um, Amanda's asking what was the weather like and how did that kind of affect your plans? And then anything you want to say about skiing conditions?
Oh yeah. So the weather was all over the place. When we got there, there was a high pressure front. So some of the nights were really cold, but it was very clear days. Not many clouds. So we were kind of getting roasted in the sun. But those are the days we weren't really, this was at 14 camp. So we were, mostly those days were rest days to acclimatize. So we weren't really trying to push to anything higher, which was kind of a bummer because those were the perfect weather windows to try to summit. But after that high pressure, low pressure system came in and was just all over the place. It would be cloudy 1 second and whiteout 1 second to snowing to then sunny and, just kind of unpredictable. All the weather, weather folks.
Variables.
Yeah, all of them were just all over the place. All of them were conflicting, and we're like, well, we can't really listen to
Uh-huh.
them. We don't really know. Like, so one of our teammates' dads was kind of watching weather for us, and he kind of put it pretty clearly that it just seemed like spring thunderstorms. Just random
Mm.
clouds come in, snow for a little bit, get out, get clear for a little bit. Another set of clouds come in, snow for a little bit. So it was kind of all over the place. So finding a weather window to try to summit was very difficult, and we kind of just pulled the trigger on this like 1.5 day maybe
Mm.
window we had to
Mm.
go from 14 to 17 to the summit and back down. So it was a kind of an impulsive one, but we made it happen and made it
Yeah.
safely down, and made as many safe decisions as we could, and didn't really get locked in on the summit if there was anything dangerous that was about to happen. But yeah, we did summit in a blizzard, which was very exciting
Wow.
and
Wow.
unfortunate that we didn't see the sights, but we
Mm.
still did it, and it was definitely an emotional summit.
Mm.
Hmm.
Well, Vasu, I think the world is happy to have you back, and congratulations on a truly historic and just amazing achievement.
Hmm.
And yeah, looking forward to staying connected and having you on the team this summer.
Yeah, definitely appreciate you having me on and chatting. Always, I feel like we're gonna have more conversations to come, of course. So, yeah, happy to be on the team and see what the summer entails.
Awesome. To all of you guys out there, thank you so much for tuning in and yeah, just hanging out and listening to these stories. Um, yeah, we're psyched to have you in our community.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks, Z. Yeah, thanks, Samsara. Appreciate you all.
Right on. Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
all right, take care.